So, today I'm going to talk about intuition and how it can sometimes appear to lead you into chaos, which nothing is ever chaos, right? There's no chaos. The universe is perfect. Our senses and our conditioned mind can only perceive, right? Our senses can only perceive an infinitesimal portion of reality, 0.1% of reality. So, what to our eyes and ears and senses looks like something terrible, something chaotic, right? On a higher level, there is an order, there's a perfection about it. So we have to accept, first of all, that life is not about acquiring things. It's not about the law of attraction. The focus really shouldn't be like, let me get that perfect partner, let me get that money or that perfect body or whatever people are looking for. It's really about becoming the vessel that is the perfected soul, right? The soul that is as close to godliness as it can possibly be, right? To embody your higher self in the physical world, to behave as the higher self. And in order for your vessel to go from where it is to that perfected state, that journey is going to be very specific to you and your karma. So, as I've said in other videos, some people really need to learn compassion and empathy, and other people really need to learn boundaries and maybe even putting yourself first, right? The nodes are a perfect example of that. North node in Aries and South node in Libra, that person is going to have almost like an opposite correction than somebody with a North node in Libra and a South node in Aries. So that's one thing. Our intuition is going to lead us on the journey where our soul can come into homeostasis, into affinity of form with the creator. So being loving, being unlimited, being creative, being proactive, having both the ability to feel fully but also to move forward, to set intentions and execute things, but also enjoy the journey and the company and the humans and do all of those things. So we can't, right? When people online are talking about, okay, in order to get the guy you deserve, the girl you deserve, whatever, it's particular in relationship, like people treat the past, what come before you, as garbage, like throw away that toxic thing, that wasn't right, like, and that's all blame mentality. That's like you're completely disregarding the beautiful journey that you have been on to clarify your vessel, to have affinity of form with the creator. And you should have reverence for every person that has played a role in that. And I hope also that you not only feel like a victim, like, well, that person was toxic and I was a victim of their toxicity. We also have to take responsibility for our own, not just how we are abused, but the way that we abuse others. Because even people who are doormats, even people that take a lot of abuse, they also abuse others in their own way. Because it's like if you hit a dog 10 times, it's going to bite you at some point. So the fact that you let people abuse you is abusive to others, because you end up hating yourself and projecting that self-hatred onto others and cutting people down. And I speak from experience, right? This is like real shadow work, okay? Everybody has an abuser. Everybody abuses self and abuses others. So I'm just going to share, and to help you have reverence and gratitude and graciousness for the journey of your life, and not be like, treat people like pizzas, like throw away that rotten pizza, let's order a good pizza. It's like wherever, whatever, you can change your environment and rearrange the people in your life, but like wherever you go, there you are. And like it's about you becoming, having affinity of form with God, not just getting rid of things in your environment. Although that can be part of it, because some people, including me, I've had a very hard time like letting go of people because I deeply care about them, and in some cases because I'm afraid of what life would look like without them. Sometimes it's fear, right? So I'm just going to share with you how relationship has clarified my desire and my vessel, and how grateful I am to all the players in this game, right? Because this physical world is when people say it's an illusion, what that means is like what it looks like to the conditioned mind is an illusion. What it really is a gigantic orchestra of perfection. And we should have reverence for that. So in my life, a huge lesson that I've learned, right, to have greater affinity of form with the creator is to, like, one of my biggest lessons has been to cultivate stillness, because I had really intense emotional reactions. So, like, being able to sit with the amplitude of like my anger, the amplitude of my feeling of injustice, of my feeling of like being able to just like sit with that and let it burn, so that I don't behave from that energy, so that I don't speak from that energy. That has been one of my greatest challenges. So I've been given partners, I've been given people in my life who are almost like dumbfoundingly unreasonable, or that, like, I remember always saying something in a nice way, and the people never listening to me. So like it escalated and I had to get loud, or at the time I thought I had to get loud. Of course, that's not true. Another issue going on there is that I simply chose somebody that wasn't right for me. It was right for me in the sense of learning what I needed to learn. But a deep, deep lesson that I've realized is that your sense of offness about a person, that thing you feel at the very beginning, it's never going to change, right? Whatever you feel at the very beginning of a dynamic, intuitively, right? This is not necessarily emotionally, this is not about a judgment you make, just something that's just off. That offness is intuition, right? That is something that is never going to change. And if you play out the story, you're going to end up realizing what that is. But we have the opportunity to listen to it at an earlier stage, right? That's a huge lesson that I've learned. It's a big it's a way to collapse time, to shift to higher realities, just to listen to something that might not make any logical sense, something that everybody in your environment may disagree with, but that's real intuition. Like, it doesn't matter who agrees or disagrees with me. I feel something fundamentally off. I'm going to listen to it. Huge lesson. And now let me ask you something. Why would that be so important in the future? Why would it be important to trust your instincts? Well, maybe when you have kids, deciding where they sleep over, deciding who babysits them, deciding where to invest your money, right? Having instincts. A lot of very, very successful people, they have killer instincts, right? In the sense that, like, something might not make any logical sense to an investor, but like the person just doesn't feel right about something, and that's what they go off of. That skill, me integrating that back into my beingness, is going to serve me in a multitude of ways that relationship brought into my awareness. So learning to cultivate stillness, learning to let my emotional energy be felt in the light of my presence, to let it burn, to learn how to be deeply uncomfortable without acting it out. That's been one of my biggest things, to trust my instincts. Even when like everybody that I care about doesn't believe me, that self-belief, that deep, deep trust of self is something that relationship has helped me clarify my vibration, if you will. I've learned that, I have to be honest with myself. It's like kind of a similar thing about what matters to me. Because if you're coming from karma of like not really caring about your desires, disregarding your desires, not admitting to yourself what's important to you, you might settle for something that's like totally not at all authentic to you. It's, if you're a deep feeler, for example, and you love music and you love the arts and you love that feeling aspect of life, and you want to share that with somebody, being with someone that's like very cerebral and maybe more dry, that might not work for you, right? And that's okay. Like writing down a list of like, what are the things that really matter to me? One for me is self-responsibility. People that are self-responsible, people that um, feel deeply, people who have a tenderness for the human experience, people who have deep compassion for the human experience, but also people who are creative and don't get owned by their environment, right? These things are, if I'm very real with myself, those things matter to me. So I've learned to start to admit to myself what matters to me. I've also learned, as I've shared in other videos, that I had a pattern of not being able to create and hold boundaries. And if the universe really wants to teach you how to learn boundaries, like even a person who's not typically a boundary breaker, like they'll break your boundaries, right? And that's not like to blame yourself for everything, but like if the universe really wants to teach me, like, listen, you need to learn how to create a boundary and to honor it like like an iron boundary. People are going to show up, and you're going to have opportunities. I have opportunities almost on a daily basis to exercise this muscle, like to say, okay, I'm done with this phone call right now, like I'm done with this conversation for right now. Okay, this is I'm gonna go home early, I have stayed out late enough, right? To not push myself beyond what feels comfortable for me, right? That's been a huge lesson that relationship has showed me. Relationship has showed me I have been in the presence of very powerful, charismatic people who I used to feel unstable around. Like they used to influence the way I felt about me, the way I felt about life. And this goes along with trusting your instincts. It's like, well, can you be around people who want things from you, who project really heavy things on you, but still stay in the center and say, I know who I am. I'm not going to frequency match with you. You know, like, let's say this happens to a lot of the women I know. Some women think they're attracted to men, but what they're actually feeling is the men's attraction to them because they're frequency matching with their environment and they're out of touch with their desires, right? They don't have a healthy sense of self, so they're simply calibrating to the environment. That's a huge thing I've learned, is to feel who I am and what I want and not just acquiesce to my environment. Huge. I mean, why might that be important? Oh my God, where do I begin? I mean, if you want to hold a lot of energy in the world, whether it's by creating a business, inventing something, contributing something, like if you want to hold a certain amplitude of energy, like you're going to have to create the structures in your psyche to be able to hold that amount of energy. Because if you don't have self-respect, boundaries, if you acquiesce to what other people say, like who even are you? Like you have no sense of self. You could feel really strongly about an investment or about a person in your life, and then if you have no sense of self and you're just swayed by what some person tells you, like you've lost contact with God, basically, that's speaking through you. This is essentially honoring the God within, how you're guided, how you feel about something, right? That's been a huge thing for me. I've also learned how low my standards have been in relationship. And I became aware of this when somebody apologized to me after a long time, many months after doing something that wasn't nice. And I was so floored. This person didn't have the habit of apologizing for very much anything. I was so floored and taken back and melted by that apology. I was so moved by it. And then I paused and I said, wait a minute, why am I fawning over something that's so basic? Like, this is basic decency that I'm asking for. And I've learned that in some ways I had like very much poverty beggar mindset about, wait, if I have to explain to someone more than once to respect my boundary, my physical boundary, whatever kind of boundary, if I have to like explain to someone that apologizing is like basic human decency when you do something wrong, there's a red flag about me that, holy shit, Alex, like you might have really low standards in life. And, like it's good to be aware of these things. So like this is my list. Like I've raised my standards. I've cultivated the ability to create boundaries. I've admitted to myself the ways that I can be abusive, particularly when I am feeling intense emotional energy. That feeling that you want to say something, that you want to write like a freaking essay about your feelings. Something that I've learned is maybe write it out, but don't send the message. So many things have been, I've attained greater affinity of form by really pausing, affinity of form with the creator, by really pausing and being like, I'm just all in about like, what is the universe asking me to become, to do differently? What am I being asked? Like, how can I bring my soul into greater affinity of form with the creator? If you really want to know the answer to that, right? People ask me about like, how do I get answers from God, from my higher self? I teach some people how to do automatic writing. Like, step one is you have to actually want to know the answer. that's the biggest like that's the biggest hurdle, is that people don't really want to know the answer because people want to maintain their self-concept, their idea of themselves. So if I want to maintain the idea that I'm good, that I'm a saint, that I'm never wrong, that I never hurt people, that I've never been abusive, that I'm a victim, that like whatever, if I want to maintain that self concept, I will not be open to information from the system of life that will actually tell me the truth about how I'm being, right? So you have to like need, like a drowning person needs oxygen. You have to want that much to know the truth about yourself. Something else I've learned is that I was almost chronically in a state of guilt, and I used to literally reward abusive behavior. Like ever since I was a teenager, someone would like cheat on me and I'd buy them a gift. It's like, because something must be wrong with me, right? Because I'm a guilty, nasty piece of shit sinner. I'm not even joking. This is like the dialogue. You might not hear it audibly, but if you are taking, in a masochistic way and actually in some way enjoying it or just staying connected to it, not being able to walk away from it, one of the big reasons is that people feel like they deserve it because they feel guilty. And you could call it because you feel guilty about a past life, but it's really guilt you've had since the beginning of time that you're here to correct. So I could go on and on and on about what I've learned so that I can, right? You can't vibrate with God if you're chronically apathetic, chronically depressed, chronically uh, guilty, shameful, judgmental, right? You have to look at all these things, and when you're really ready to let it go, people say like, how do I let go of depression? You want to. You have to want to. Creator, I'm ready to let go of this listlessness, this despair. I'm ready to see things differently. Like I'm ready to let life in. Like it's really that simple. It's that people that don't move beyond it don't want to move beyond it. And that's another part of the shadow work. It's like, why are you holding on? Why are you romanticizing discomfort? Why are you romanticizing? Why do you have such a high tolerance for pain? Is that something to be proud of? Right? It's good to be able to sit through discomfort, but to luxuriate in it is a different story. So have reverence for the way every human being helps you have affinity of form with the creator, and be very honest with yourself. How am I the abuser? How do I abuse others? How do I abuse myself? What am I holding on to within me that disallows this nuclear vital energy to express through me? A big thing I've learned as well is like, to value to value my gifts and abilities, to admit to myself that I have talent, to admit to myself, I used to not be able to say, like, there was a prompt I remember. I've been to a lot of Dr. Joe events. I love Dr. Joe, and he says, think of something great that you've done. And I would literally like have nothing to say about myself, which wasn't true. Right now I would say a lot of other things, but I wasn't ready to admit that, like, I've done spectacular things in my life. I love who I am, right? I couldn't say that for a long time. I felt a lot of shame about myself for so many different reasons. But one thing I can say is that I am very sincere in my desire to have affinity of form with God being an unlimited creative consciousness that is loving and that behaves as an unlimited loving being. And in no way have I perfected that, but I'm trying. So stop and ask, like, what have you learned? What have you let go of? Like, humans are angels sent to you to help you achieve the highest goal there is, which is to become like God, right? In your human life, you can realize you're God, you can have a non-dual awakening. But if you're blaming, if you're doing all those unconscious things, you are not being that energy. So be honest with yourself, have reverence for every human that's in your life, and realize that yes, your intuition may vary. Your intuition is not here to deliver things to you, it's here to deliver you to you. And so you have to respect the journey. So I hope this is helpful, and I hope you have a beautiful day.